Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and your ears to some of the travails and tribulations that we go throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And this one is about our federal prison system and how some of our federal prison employees have been taking advantage of inmates, and especially female inmates. And this is becoming a real issue throughout many of our federal and state prisons throughout our country. And I'm going to talk about specifically a few places like California, Kentucky, etc. Here we go. Workers at federal prisons are committing some of the crimes. More than 100 federal prison workers have been arrested, 100, convicted or sentenced for crimes since the start of 2019, including a warden indicted for SA, an associate warden charged with murder, guards taking cash to smuggle drugs and weapons, and supervisors stealing property such as tires and tractors. An Associated Press investigator has found that the Federal Bureau of Prisons, with an annual budget of nearly $8 billion, is a hotbed of abuse and corruption and has turned a blind eye to employees accused of misconduct. In some cases, the agency has failed to suspend officers who themselves have been arrested for crimes. 2/3 of the criminal cases against Justice Department personnel in recent years have involved federal prison workers, who account for less than 1/3 of the department's workforce. Of the 41 arrests this year, 28 were of BOP employees or contractors. That's Bureau of Prisons, BOP. The FBI just had 5. The DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms and Explosives, they only had 2. So the majority of them are coming out, the majority of these criminal cases are coming straight out of the Bureau of Prisons, BOP. The numbers highlighted how criminal behavior by employees festers inside a federal prison system meant to punish and rehabilitate people who have committed bad acts. The revelations come as advocates are pushing the Biden administration to get serious about fixing the Bureau. In one case unearthed by the AP, the agency allowed an official at a federal prison in Mississippi, whose job it was to investigate misconduct of other staff members, to remain in his position after he was arrested on charges of stalking and harassing fellow employees. That official was also allowed to continue investigating a staff member who had accused him of a crime. In a statement to the AP, the Justice Department said it will not tolerate staff misconduct, particularly criminal misconduct. The department said it is committed to holding accountable any employee who abuses a position of trust, which we have demonstrated through federal criminal prosecutions and other means. Attorney General Merrick Garland has said his deputy, Lisa Monaco, meets regularly with the Bureau of Prisons officials to address issues plaguing the agency. Federal prison workers in nearly every job function have been charged with crimes. Federal prison workers in nearly every job function have been charged with crimes. Those employees include a teacher who pleaded guilty in January to fudging an inmate's high school equivalency, and a chaplain who was admitted to taking at least $12,000 in bribes to smuggle Suboxone, which is used to treat opioid addiction, as well as marijuana, tobacco, and cell phones, and leaving the items in a prison chapel cabinet for inmates to retrieve. Wow. At the highest ranks, the warden of a federal women's prison in Dublin, California, was arrested last September and indicted last month on charges he molested an inmate multiple times, scheduled times where he demanded she undress in front of him, and amassed a slew of nude photos of her on his government issued phone. Warden Ray Garcia, who was placed on administrative leave after the FBI raided his office last July, allegedly told the woman there was no point in reporting the SA because he was close friends with the person who would investigate the allegation, and that the inmate wouldn't be able to ruin him. Garcia has pleaded not guilty. Garcia's arrest came 3 months after a recycling technician at FCI Dublin was arrested on charges he coerced 2 inmates into SA activity. Several other workers at the facility were actresses Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin spent time for their involvement in the college admissions bribery scandal are under investigation. Monaco said after Garcia's arrest that she was taking a very serious look at these issues across the board and insisted that she had confidence in the Bureau's director, Michael Carvajal, months after senior administration officials were weighing whether to oust him. In August, the associate warden at the Metropolitan Detention Center in New York City was charged with killing her husband, a fellow prison worker, after police said she shot him in the face in their New Jersey home. She has pleaded not guilty. That's in New York. So you got Mississippi, California, New York. 1/5 of the BOP, Bureau of Prisons, cases tracked by the AP involve crimes of a sexual nature, second only to cases involving smuggled contraband. All SA activity between a prison worker and an inmate is illegal. In the most egregious cases, inmates say they were coerced through fear, intimidation, and threats of violence. A correctional officer and drug treatment specialist at a Lexington, Kentucky prison medical center were charged in July with threatening to kill inmates or their families if they didn't go along with SA abuse. A Victorville, California inmate said she felt frozen and powerless with fear when a guard threatened to send her to the hole unless she performed a act on him. He pleaded guilty in 2019. Theft, fraud, and lying on paperwork after inmates' deaths have also been an issue. Early this month, 3 employees and 8 former inmates at the notorious New York City Federal Jail where financier Jeffrey Epstein killed himself were indicted in what prosecutors said was an extensive bribery and contraband smuggling scheme. The Justice Department closed the jail in October, citing deplorable conditions for inmates. Last year, a gun got into the building. One of the charged employees, a unit secretary, was also accused of representing gang member Anthony Ellison as a model inmate to get him a lesser sentence. The Bureau of Prisons, which houses more than 150,000 federal inmates and employs about 37,500 people, has lurched from crisis to crisis in the past few years, from the rampant spread of the virus inside prisons and a failed response to the pandemic to dozens of escapes, deaths, and critically low staffing levels that have hampered responses to emergencies. They got a lot going on. In interviews with the AP, more than a dozen Bureau staff members have also raised concerns that the agency's disciplinary system has led to an outsized focus on alleged misconduct by rank-and-file employees. And they say allegations of misconduct made against senior executives and wardens are more easily brushed aside. The main concern of the BOP is that wardens at each institution, they decide if there's going to be any disciplinary investigation or not, says Susan Canales, vice president of the union at FCI Dublin. Basically, you're putting the fox in charge of the hen house. At the federal prison in Yazoo City, Mississippi, the official tasked was investigating staff misconduct has been the subject of numerous complaints and multiple arrests. The Bureau has removed him from the position or suspended him, a deviation from standard Justice Department practice. In one instance, a prison worker reported that the official assaulted him inside a housing unit, according to a police report obtained by the AP. Internal documents detail allegations that the official grabbed the officer's arm and trapped him inside an inmate's cell, blocking his path. The same official was arrested in another instance when a different employee contacted the local sheriff's office accusing him of stalking and harassing her. The AP is not identifying the official by name because some of the criminal charges were later dropped. In both instances, the victims said they reported the incidences to the prison complex warden, Shannon Withers, and to the Justice Department Inspector General, but they say the BOP failed to take any action, allowing the official to remain in his position despite pending criminal charges and allegations of serious misconduct. A Bureau spokesperson, Christy Breshires, declined to discuss the case or address why the official was never suspended. Breshires said the agency is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all inmates in our population, our staff, and the public, and the allegations of misconduct are thoroughly investigated for potential administrative discipline or criminal prosecution. The Bureau said it requires background checks and carefully screens and evaluates prospective employees to ensure they meet its core values. The agency said it requires its employees to conduct themselves in a manner that fosters respect for the BOP, Bureau of Prisons, DOJ, Department of Justice, and the U.S. government. What a story. There is a lot of entanglement and detanglement going on in our prison system. As we all know, our penal system or our prison system is not a place for rehabilitation. It has been a place to house inmates, and there is very little psychological treatment, rehabilitation, drug treatment. It seems like the chaos and disruption that takes place out in the cities and the communities that got them in trouble and then got these individuals sent to prison, seems like that chaos and disruption continues to go on. And when you develop a climate and an environment of this kind of egregious behavior, now you see the correctional officers, even wardens, participating and taking advantage of inmates, female inmates, male inmates, transporting contraband in and out of not only your state prisons, but even your federal prisons. And supposedly you would think that the federal prison is supposed to have tighter security and checkoff points than the state. But it seems like these federal, even if it's a minimum or a medium security prison, there's a lot of negativity and chaos and disruption and hypocrisy that is going on. Even if you committed a crime, get convicted and sent to prison, even though there's very, very little rehabilitation on several levels, medically, psychologically, you still should be treated in a humane way of life. You're still a human being, male or female, and abuse and harassment should not be the standard of care in our United States prison systems. This is unfair. There are violations. Even though you're an inmate, you still have civil rights and civil liberties that you secure and protect and have earned. And for these officials, which is illegal for a prison employee to have a relationship with a inmate, you got a superior, inferior kind of subordinate kind of relationship, no different than teacher and student, is inappropriate and illegal. there's a lot going on in the Bureau of Prisons. And as I say, as our government investigates things that are taking place in our cities, in our communities, in our states, we can't forget that there are egregious and negative and heinous behaviors that are taking place behind the walls of our prison system. And vetting the right kind of individuals to work in our prison system to protect themselves and to protect inmates from each other and any other kind of negative activity that could take place is their job. And to be an active participant in negative activity or egregious behavior against inmates and taking advantage of them, essaying them, taking nude pictures, you're just as guilty from a moral, ethical, and legal standpoint as the prisoners that are being housed at these prisons. Is hypocritical, is debauchery from a human standpoint at its greatest measure, and it needs to be cleaned up immediately. I mentioned in this article about 4 states: Mississippi, Kentucky, New York, California. This is having a panacea of negative, diseased state kind of inhumane mentality on the treatment of these inmates. They're still human beings, and many of them want to do their time and get out and become viable citizens. But we can't have corruption inside the walls of our prison system. We need to clean that up. It would be no different than having corrupt cops in our cities and our states that are committing crimes and taking advantage of tax-paying citizens, putting cases on them, false arrests, false illegal shootings with our police officers out here in the free world. We need great police officers, and we need great COs, correctional officers. I think both police officers and correctional officers need to be paid more. Their lives are at stake each and every day that they leave the house, put on their uniform, and go to work. But they should not be going to their workforce and taking advantage of people that are in inferior positions just because they can. They're still human beings. Treat them with respect. And there's a fine line between non-criminality and criminality when you're in these positions. And just when you think that you're a correctional officer and you can get away with whatever you want, the next thing you know, you get caught and you end up as an inmate. There's a fine line between the two. And you even see wardens who are kind of the governors of their prisons, the ultimate say, and then they are committing these hostile harassment kind of environments, and they need to be gotten rid of. So tell me what you think about this issue that's going on in these federal prisons where workers are committing just as many crimes as the inmates that they are supposed to be overseeing. This has been a Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth in a positive, righteous, and God-fearing way.